Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, the Iranian proxy Houthis in Yemen launch a ballistic missile at the United Arab Emirates during a visit of Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog, drawing Emirati retaliatory strikes. The Lebanese government responds to a list of demands by Gulf Arab states in a bid to see tensions alleviated after relations were frozen. Unidentified aircraft launch a salvo of missiles toward targets reportedly belonging to Iranian proxy Hezbollah on the outskirts of the Syrian capital Damascus. Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog embarked on a historic trip to the United Arab Emirates yesterday at the invitation of Emirati Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Ahead of his departure from Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, the Israeli head of state highlighted the message which his trip to the United Arab Emirates brings to the entire region. After landing in Abu Dhabi, President Herzog was hosted by Crown Prince bin Zayed Al Nahyan at his palace, during which the two leaders held a warm and cordial meeting that lasted for over 2 hours. Ahead of their meeting and remarks made with the media present, Crown Prince bin Zayed Al Nahyan highlighted the importance of relations between the two nations, which is rooted in peace, by which both nations and the wider region, quote, can direct resources and capabilities towards serving our nations and paving the way for a better tomorrow, a message President Herzog both acknowledged and endorsed.
This message of peace is the cornerstone of our relationship, and we are here to deliver a message both to the Israelis, to the Emirates, and to the region that the Abraham Accords should be continued and more nations should join us in this endeavor.
Crown Prince bin Zayed Al Nahyan also seized the opportunity for his part to thank President Herzog for Israel's solidarity with the United Arab Emirates and a resolute stance against the repeated attacks by the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen, to which the Israeli head of state pledged Jerusalem's support to further enhance the UAE's security.
We support completely your security requirements, and we condemn in all form and way and language any attack on your sovereignty by terrorist groups. And we are here together to find ways and means to bring full and utmost security to people who seek peace in the region.
على موقفك وموقف دولة إسرائيل تجاه الاعتداءات الإرهابية الأخيرة على منشآت مدنية في دولة الإمارات، وهو موقف يجسد رؤيتنا المشتركة تجاه مصادر التهديد للاستقرار والسلام الإقليميين، وفي مقدمتها الميليشيات والقوى الإرهابية.
Subsequently, at approximately 20 minutes after midnight, the Emirati Ministry of Defense confirmed that a missile was intercepted by air defenses after loud explosions were heard above the city of Abu Dhabi. Thankfully, no injuries or damage were reported. Consequently, in a swift retaliatory response, roughly 30 minutes later, the Emirati Air Force conducted an aerial strike against the platform for ballistic missiles, from which the missile was launched earlier that night in the northern Yemeni governorate of Al-Jauf. Meanwhile, the Houthis in Yemen boastfully claimed responsibility for the deliberate attack. And while its one ballistic missile was successfully intercepted, the Houthi spokesman deceitfully proclaimed a robust attack that hit multiple targets in both Abu Dhabi and Dubai, in a third such flagrant aggression aimed at civilian targets in less than 3 weeks. The Houthi spokesman went on to highlight his terror organization's intention to continue to strike at the United Arab Emirates, citing Israel's relations with the UAE as the core reason.
وقد حققت العملية بعون الله أهدافها بنجاح. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية تؤكد أن دويلة العدو الإماراتي ستظل غير آمنة طالما استمرت أدوات العدو الإسرائيلي في أبو ظبي ودبي في شن العدوان على شعبنا وبلدنا العزيز.
It is important to know that alongside the open threat by the Iranian proxy toward the United Arab Emirates, the Islamic Republic of Iran has voiced its own threat by advising countries that normalize relations with Israel to be aware of the fact that they will be the first victim of the aggressive nature of the Jewish state. The Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh further stressed cynically, quote, Iran not only condemns these actions in line with normalization of relations with the Israeli regime, but also thinks that they should hear the awakening voice of their nation as soon as possible and put an end to these divisions in the Islamic and the Arab world. Meanwhile, the Ayatollah regime in Tehran, which declaratively claims the Islamic Republic to be a peace-loving nation, organized a protest in support of the Islamic Republic's proxy tribe in Yemen amid recent consecutive losses in battlefields throughout the war-torn country at the hand of the Saudi-led coalition. While the Ayatollah regime managed to draw several thousands of supporters to protest in the streets of Tehran, Iranian-backed organizations that sought to emulate their deceptive hate-driven message have drawn far smaller crowds, including in the Turkish city of Istanbul, where an organization which local officials refer to as an Iran puppet group drew a crowd of several hundred supporters who raised placards of assassinated RGC Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani to protest in solidarity with the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. Meanwhile, the Lebanese government has responded to a list of demands by Gulf Arab states in a bid to see tensions alleviated after relations were frozen. Relations between the Gulf Arab states and Lebanon deteriorated initially in light of remarks that were made by Beirut's former Hezbollah-aligned information minister, George Koldahi, against the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. Consequently, and despite Hezbollah's voiced objections, Minister Koldahi resigned at the request of the incumbent Lebanese prime minister. Nevertheless, fearing Iran's deepening grip over the once prosperous Lebanon, Gulf nations have drafted a joint list of demands as a prerequisite for restoring relations.
بالنسبة إلى المقترحات التي نقلتها إلى الجانب اللبناني كانت ورقة كويتية ولكن كذلك كانت ورقة خليجية وعربية ودولية، وكان هناك في تنسيق تام مع كافة دول الخليج في هذا الموضوع، فهي لم تكن كويتية صرفة. ثانيا، نعم أتانا رد ويشكرون عليه المسؤولون اللبنانيون في هذا المجال. الآن هو متروك إلى دراسة هذا الرد من قبل الجهات المعنية في الكويت وفي دول الخليج لمعرفة ما هي الخطوة القادمة مع لبنان.
It is important to know that one of the core demands includes the implementation of UN Resolution 1559, which calls for the strict respect of Lebanon's sovereignty, territorial integrity, unity, and political independence under the sole and exclusive authority of the government of Lebanon throughout the country. It further calls for the disbanding and disarmament of all Lebanese and non-Lebanese militias, which also includes the Iranian proxy Hezbollah. Therefore, any such demand is regarded as highly unlikely, since disarming Hezbollah would effectively mean an end to Iranian influence in the country. Moreover, Hezbollah continuously praises the Islamic Republic of Iran for its unrelenting efforts to bolster its proxies in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, the Gaza Strip, and Lebanon. In related news, unidentified aircraft launched a salvo of missiles from the direction of Lebanon's Bekaa Governorate toward a number of targets northeast of the Syrian capital Damascus and the city of Al-Qutaifa. According to a Syrian military source quoted by the regime-run Sana news agency, At around 3:05 a.m. today, the Israeli enemy carried out an air attack with bursts of missiles from the direction of Riyadh, east of Beirut, targeting some points in the vicinity of Damascus. And while Syria's aerial defense array was activated, the Syrian military sources acknowledged that only some of the incoming projectiles were intercepted, confirming further some material losses. Separately, the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights noted that ambulances were seen rushing to military posts and warehouses, which are known to store munitions belonging to the Lebanese-Iranian proxy Hezbollah. And while Syria immediately attributed responsibility to the Israeli Air Force, the IDF spokesperson's unit did not confirm nor deny its alleged responsibility in response to TV7's request for comment. Furthermore, as part of TV7 Israel's prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you this evening to join the team and me here in Jerusalem to lift up Austria in prayer for its salvation and peace, alongside prayers for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, in addition to our ongoing prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you a Shavuot Tov U'Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.